Alright, this is an impromptu video. So, here we go. I just saw Solo, a Star Wars story. It was very good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I know a lot of people are not too happy with the film. I haven't read any reviews as to why they're not happy with the film. I will say this. First half hour or so was paced entirely wrong. It's, normally at the beginning of a film like this, you get to know the characters. You get to know, especially the protagonist, and you get to see what kind of person he is. And that didn't happen. It was action, 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 action for the first part of the film. Maybe 30 minutes. I didn't have my phone out to time it or anything. But it was too much action, and it wasn't very exciting action. Conflict only matters when you care about the character, and conflict doesn't always have to be huge. It can be very small stakes, but if it's important to the character, and the character is important to the audience, then it's good television. Good, well, film, storytelling. Storytelling is probably the right word. The example I like to use is in Better Call Saul. His brother Chuck, the main character's brother is named Chuck, and he's working on a case about opening up a bank across state lines in a new state. Not a very exciting anything, really. He's opening a bank. That's, yay, he's doing all the legal work for opening a bank. Woohoo. But it's incredibly important to Chuck. We connect with Chuck. So it's important to the audience. Very small, minor thing. You know, opening a bank. I would never do something that boring in one of my stories. I may do it now that I've seen that, but I never would have thought of doing that, I guess I should say. Something so small, so conflict so minor, so boring. But it wasn't boring when they did it. It was the opposite of boring. So, yeah. What's going on? Other things about the Solo movie. One, Warwick Davis does a cameo. I didn't watch a lot of the previews or anything for this. I didn't know that was going to happen. As soon as I saw him, I cheered. I watched this on a Thursday morning. There were 4 people in the theater, including me, so I was the only one who cheered. But that was awesome. After the first 30 minutes or so, the pacing of the movie is very good. You finally really start to get to know who Han Solo was back then. Which you should have found out again in the first part. You don't buy into the character. You don't have that buy-in for him until later in the movie. They reference, for all of us Star Wars geeks out there, or foremost Star Wars geeks in my particular case, they reference, what's his name? Lando Calrissian, the books. Before 1991, there were, 7 Star Wars books? There were the original trilogy adaptions. There was Splinter of the Mind's Eye, which the ghostwriter for the first Star Wars novel, first Star Wars movie, A New Hope, was Alan Dean Foster. He wrote the novel Splinter of the Mind's Eye before Empire Strikes Back came out. So that's 4. And then there was 3 Han Solo books, which they did not reference in here, and 3 Lando Calrissian books, which they did reference in here. Repeatedly. There were repeated reference to them. It wasn't exactly the same. In those books, Lando was traveling with a droid named Vuffy Ra, if I remember correctly. Something like that. Vuffy Ra sounds right. It's been over a decade since I've read them. More than a decade. Lots more than a decade. Anyway, so in those 3 books, they do talk about the Osean and the Sharu, and that's mentioned in the movie. And if you know what those are, then I haven't really given you any spoilers. He mentions them in passing. It's not what the movie's about. But I really enjoyed those books. They really got the character of Lando right in those books, better than most other people do. Yeah. Having those little references, throwing in those little references, It means a lot to Star Wars fans, to fans of any genre. You're going to want little references like that. What else? If you watch the Clone Wars, there was references to something that happened in those cartoons. They definitely talked about that. That was nice. Anything else? It's good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt they paced it right for the ending. You were definitely hooked in by the end of the movie. You really cared about Han at that point. And I really enjoyed watching that movie. I'm surprised it hasn't done better than it's doing. But then again, it's going up against Deadpool and Deadpool 2 and Avengers Infinity War is still in this theater. And next week, The Incredibles come out, Incredibles 2, and that's a huge one for geeks, nerds, whatever you want to call us. I'm not really. Appeal isn't there for me anymore. Bad writing has driven me out of most of the fandoms I used to love. But Pixar's doing The Incredibles, and The Incredibles is still my favorite superhero movie of all time. So, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how it is. But that's my non-spoiler review of Solo. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to mention. They really treated the source material well. I'm really happy about that. There was too much action for a Star Wars movie in the first third of the film. I know who normally complains about action, but I'm disappointed in Ron Howard for doing it that way. He knows better. But the rest of the film is paced very well. It's not about the action. It's not about the special effects. It's about the story. And a young George Lucas would have agreed with me. That's who I learned it from. With his very, very famous comment, a special effect without a story is nothing. It's just boring. And he said that while he was making Star Wars, and the first movie. And he seemed to have forgotten that, and the prequels. But I really enjoyed this movie. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. I don't think I've enjoyed the other Star Wars movies that have come out since Disney bought them as much as this one. No. I haven't enjoyed any of them as much as this one. Even with the rough beginning. So, there you go. That's my first take on this. So, for whatever it's worth, this has been an impromptu video.